Welcome to Building Vocabulary for IELTS. Today we are going to do a deep dive into some key vocabulary
All right.
that'll not only enrich your English, but it's also going to help you prepare for the IELTS listening section. You see, the IELTS exam is often required for those who want to study or work in places where English is the main language.
Yeah, absolutely. And all parts of the exam are important, but, the listening section can be especially challenging.
Right.
So that's why we're focusing on vocabulary that will be especially helpful for a conversation that you'll be listening to about Hinchingbrooke Country Park.
Exactly. So think of this deep dive as a warm-up for your ears. We're going to take turns introducing a word or a phrase, and we'll pronounce it twice.
Okay.
Give you a moment to let it sink in, then we'll explain what it means.
All right.
But you're going to want to keep these words in mind as you listen to the conversation later on, because they might just hold the key to understanding and answering those tricky IELTS questions.
Let's go.
So are you ready to expand your vocabulary?
Absolutely. Let's get started.
Okay, great. So the first word is Hinchingbrooke Country Park.
Hinchingbrooke Country Park.
Hinchingbrooke Country Park.
Okay, this one is pretty straightforward. It's just the name of the park that will be the focus of the conversation you'll be listening to.
Okay, next up we have Ranger.
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 Now, if you're picturing someone like in a hat, patrolling a forest or a park, you're on the right track. A ranger is a person who takes care of a park or a natural area, so they might lead guided walks, they might educate visitors about the environment, and ensure the safety of both people and wildlife.
Okay, so let's talk about the size of Hinchingbrooke Country Park. You have two terms for this. The first one is 170 acres.
170 acres.
It's 170 acres.
So this refers to the area of the park. An acre is a unit of measurement often used for land, particularly in the UK and the US.
And the second term is 69 hectares.
69 hectares?
69 hectares.
And hectares are another unit of measurement commonly used in many other parts of the world.
Right.
And you don't really have to worry too much about converting between the two. The important thing is to understand that they both refer to the park's size.
Okay, now let's move on to some terms that describe the different environments found within the park. So the first one is habitat.
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 This refers to the natural environment where a particular plant or animal species lives. It's their home.
Within Hinchingbrooke Country Park, you'll hear mention of several types of habitats. One of them is wetland.
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 As the name suggests, wetlands are areas where the ground is saturated with water, either permanently or seasonally. They can take many forms, like marshes or swamps or bogs or like the edges of lakes and rivers.
Another habitat you'll encounter is grassland.
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 Think of wide open spaces dominated by grasses.
Okay, we also have woodland.
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 Woodlands are areas covered in trees, forming a dense canopy. So think like forests, but often smaller and with a greater variety of tree species.
Within those woodlands, you might find an oak plantation.
Oak plantation.
Oak plantation.
And this refers to an area where oak trees have been deliberately planted and managed.
And then we have gravel pits.
Gravel pit.
Gravel pits.
These are areas where gravel has been extracted, often leaving behind depressions in the ground that can fill up with water, creating like small ponds or lakes.
Okay, now let's talk about the creatures that call Hinchingbrooke Country Park home. A general term for this is wildlife.
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 And wildlife encompasses all the animals and birds and insects and other organisms that live naturally in an area.
When we talk about different types of wildlife, we use the word species.
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 A species is a group of organisms that share common characteristics and they can breed with each other.
And for example, we know the park has deer and rabbits.
Deer and rabbits.
Deer and rabbits.
So those are two examples of species that are commonly found at Hinchingbrooke Country Park.
Now, moving on to some terms related to how people use the park, we have educational visits.
Educational visits.
Educational visits.
This refers to organized trips to the park, often by school groups, for learning purposes.
And they might engage in a variety of science activities.
Science activities.
Science activities.
So yeah, these could include things like identifying different types of plants and trees, or observing insects, or studying the properties of water in the wetlands.
There might also be geography activities.
Geography activities.
Geography activities.
Think map reading, learning about compass directions or exploring the physical features of the park's landscape.
And even history activities.
History activities?
History activities.
These activities might involve learning about how people have used the park in the past, perhaps for like agriculture or industry or recreation.
Of course, the park is also a place for leisure and tourism.
Leisure and tourism.
Leisure and tourism.
This simply means that people visit the park for relaxation and enjoyment and to experience its natural beauty.
Now, here's an interesting one. Music activities.
Music activities.
Music activities.
This could involve anything from like outdoor concerts to workshops where participants create music using natural materials found in the park.
Let's consider some terms that describe the benefits of spending time in nature. The first one is creativity.
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 Being in natural surroundings can often spark imagination and inspire new ideas.
Being outdoors also provides opportunities to explore and discover.
Explore and discover.
Explore and discover.
You know, there's always something new to find in a natural environment, whether it's a hidden path or an unusual plant or a fascinating creature.
And this sense of exploration can lead to a sense of freedom.
Sense of freedom.
Sense of freedom.
Away from the confines of buildings and routines, the park offers a chance to roam freely and feel a sense of liberation.
This can, in turn, boost your self-confidence.
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 Successfully navigating a new environment or learning new skills or simply overcoming challenges in nature, I think can contribute to a greater sense of self-assurance.
And of course, spending time in nature often involves developing new skills.
Developing new skills.
Developing new skills.
Whether it's learning to identify different bird calls or building a fire or, orienteering with a compass, the park offers opportunities to expand your skill set.
Okay, so let's move on to some terms related to the practical aspects of visiting Hinchingbrooke Country Park. You might hear about a full-day visit.
Full-day visit.
Full-day visit.
This means that you would spend the entire day exploring the park, taking part in activities, and experiencing all that it has to offer.
And the cost for such a visit is £4.95 per child.
£4.95 per child.
£4.95 per child.
This refers to the price for each child participating in the organized activities and educational programs.
Following the visit, you might receive an invoice.
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 An invoice is just a document that outlines the charges for the visit and payment details.
An important thing to note is that there is no charge for leaders and adults.
No charge for leaders and adults.
No charge for leaders and adults.
So that means that teachers or parents or other accompanying adults can participate in the visit free of charge.
Okay. Finally, let's look at some useful phrases you might hear in the conversation. You might hear someone say, altogether.
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 This word is often used to summarize information or present a conclusion. For example, someone might say, altogether, Hinchingbrooke Country Park offers a fantastic range of educational opportunities.
Another phrase is adapt to suit all ages.
Adapt to suit all ages.
Adapt to suit all ages.
This means that the park staff are able to adjust activities and programs to make them engaging and suitable for children of different age groups.
You might also hear about the visitor's requirements. Requirements.
This refers to the specific needs or preferences that visitors might have. For example, like accessibility requirements or dietary restrictions.
And the park staff are likely aware of the problems they may cause.
Problems they may cause.
Problems they may cause.
And this refers to potential negative impacts that visitors could have on the park's environment, such as littering or disturbing wildlife.
And lastly, if you were to inquire about a visit, they might say, we'll look forward to hearing from you.
We'll look forward to hearing from you.
We'll look forward to hearing from you.
This is just a polite way to express their willingness to assist you with planning your trip and answering any further questions you might have.
Okay, so just remember, familiarizing yourself with this vocabulary is really going to give you a big advantage in the IELTS listening section. As you listen to the conversation about Hinchingbrooke Country Park, try to identify these words and phrases and think about how they're being used in context.
Exactly. Paying attention to the context will not only deepen your understanding of the conversation, but it'll also help you answer those all-important IELTS questions. So keep these words in mind, and good luck with your listening practice.
Part 1. You will hear a teaching assistant calling a country park about a school visit. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6.
two of our classes.
OK. What would you like to know?
Well, I'm new to this area, so perhaps you could tell me something about the park first, please.
Of course. Altogether, the park covers 170 acres. That's 69 hectares. There are three main types of habitat: wetland, grassland and woodland. The woods are well established and varied, with an oak plantation and other areas of mixed species.
Right.
The wetland is quite varied too. The original farmland was dug up around 40 years ago to extract gravel. Once this work was completed, the gravel pits filled with water, forming the two large lakes. There are also several smaller ones, ponds, and a stream that flows through the park.
OK, so I suppose with these different habitats, there's quite a variety of wildlife.
There certainly is. A lot of different species of birds and insects, and also animals like deer and rabbits.
And I understand you organise educational visits for school parties.
That's right. We can organise a wide range of activities and adapt them to suit all ages.
Can you give me some examples of the activities?
Well, one focus is on science, where we help children to discover and study plants, trees and insects. They also collect and analyse data about the things they see.
Uh-huh.
Another focus is on geography. The park is a great environment to learn and practice reading a map and using a compass to navigate around the park.
Do you do anything connected with history?
Yes, we do. For instance, the children can explore how the use of the land has changed over time. Then there's leisure and tourism.
That focuses on your visitors, I would imagine.
Yes, mostly. The children find out about them, their requirements, the problems they may cause, and how we manage these. And another subject we cover is music. Here the children experiment with natural materials to create sounds and explore rhythm and tempo.
That must be fun.
Most children really enjoy it.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
And of course, all the activities are educational too. Learning outside the classroom encourages children to be creative and to explore and discover for themselves.
I would imagine they get a sense of freedom that might not be a normal part of their lives.
That's right. And very often, the children discover that they can do things they didn't know they could do, and they develop new skills. This gives them greater self-confidence.
It sounds great. So, what about the practical side of it? How much does it cost for a full-day visit? We would expect to bring between 30 and 40 children.
If there are over 30, it costs £4.95 for each child who attends on the day. We invoice you afterwards, so you don't pay for children who can't come because of sickness, for example. There's no charge for leaders and other adults, as many as you want to bring.
That sounds very fair. Well, thanks for all the information. I'll need to discuss it with my colleagues, and I hope to get back to you soon to make a booking.
We'll look forward to hearing from you. Goodbye.
Goodbye, and thank you.
That is the end of part 1.